Hello and welcome to our latest Zoomcast. John Abendroth here, and that's the great face for both TV and radio of Tom Spencer, CBS Sports, and long time with our radio show at KNBR. Good morning, Tom. How are you, bud?
I'm great. Yeah, looking forward to a fun-filled golf season, John. It's already off to a great start, but the big events are coming up, and certainly the Masters is on the horizon. Match play this week, full slate of majors, Ryder Cup, Olympics. We'll be talking a lot of golf this year.
Yeah, I feel like we need to do this in a rapid fire motion this morning because I made a few notes on some things to catch up with and get your perspective of knowing the players well and the broadcasts and the personalities behind each event is really interesting. Let's start with let me start with Original Joe's Westlake. You need to get in there and get a good meal in you. So I got the jowls to prove it. So they're doing a great job with now some indoor seating and outdoor, and so always great stuff there. And for those that haven't been there, it's always fun. There's a lot of good golf pictures on the walls, and they've done a great job with their decor as well as their meals. So pretty cool stuff. I thought let's get the tough stuff out of the way first. Tiger Woods. Boy, oh boy, this guy, I think I said this about a couple of years ago when he had another one of his surgeries and then he follows it up with the Masters. Maybe I said this, we were still doing the radio show about the Masters, that I can't think of a player in any sport in history who's had the peaks of ups and the doldrums of downs as Tiger Woods. And here with this accident, it just exemplifies that.
It's a great way to sum it up, John. You feel for him in so many ways. It's like, how much can one person take? I've never had a surgery in my life, so I can imagine just maybe getting ready for one that you planned on, that you knew was coming, would be tough enough, let alone the enormity, the magnitude, and the near tragedy of this accident. And who knows? I mean, things are, as always, pretty secretive in Tiger's world, and we certainly respect his privacy in this situation. But we don't know if there's permanent damage or if there's not, what the length of recovery might be just to function normally in life, let alone to try to talk about maybe playing some casual golf in your yard or going out for 9 holes with your kids, or let alone a tournament. Which you got to think, if we're sitting here a year from now on a Zoom call getting ready for next year's Masters, if Tiger's in line to possibly play there, that would be a pretty remarkable achievement. So, yeah, just the fact that, one, he survived this crash, and secondly, hopefully he's able to rehab now back in Florida and get better as soon as possible. That's what I'm sure millions of fans around the world are hoping for.
And if anybody can do it, he's the guy, because he's come back from all these other really severe situations and the downs, but I you hope for the best, but like you say, you don't know. It's an unknown, partly because of like you say, the privacy that he likes to keep within himself. And so be interesting to see if we had a crystal ball or a time machine to see what next a year from now looks like. So
yeah, and we know he attacks any type of rehab with 110%. So if he's able to achieve, I guess, a mental frame of mind where, yes, I want to do this, go through the physical and mental punishment, so to speak, the repetition, and have the patience to let your body heal and rehab at the same time. Hopefully there aren't more surgeries down the road, right? We don't know how many he even had in Southern California. So presumably, this is going to be a very, very long road to recovery. But like you say, he's done it before, and we would not put it past him to do it again, and to really, once again, have one last opportunity to get back into the game in some form or fashion, and maybe, really truly ride off into the sunset if that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, and just one last thought on that, that I know in some cases that, these pieces of metal that they put in, mainly the rods, that they have certain circumstances where they'll go in and take it out. That's another surgical procedure. So, we'll see how that works out. So anyway, on a more positive note, again, coming back from a low point, Justin Thomas, what a huge win for him at the Players. And I did a solo Zoom last week, and a take that I had on this, Tom, and I'd be curious to hear your opinion. I think that the younger players, the Colin Morikawas, the Victor Hovlands, have succeeded because without crowds, they've been more in their comfort zone from what they played in amateur golf in college without having crowds because of COVID. And now, does Justin Thomas coming back have the energy of what crowds there were that he's more used to as a high level, high energy player with lots of people following him when he does? But what a big victory for him, and defeating Lee Westwood, who's a whole nother story, by a shot, who had two great runner-ups week back to back.
Right. Well, to your point about just his performance on Sunday, I have a feeling at the end of this year, when we're looking back at some of the best 18-hole performances, particularly on Sunday, that this will be in the top 2 or 3 rounds of the year that Thomas put together. That course, it just, I've never been on a golf course, John, where you wait and wait and wait for the conclusion more. In other words, you play 15 holes just to get ready for the final 3. And that stretch literally makes or breaks your round. You've seen guys through the years go eagle, birdie, par. You've seen players go par, double, triple. So anything can happen. And he was able to conquer it. His tee shot on 18, he's probably still wiping sweat off his brow that ball didn't kick left instead of straight, because he would have been, in the lake and then making at least 5 and maybe 6. But the point is, he played a great round of golf. And back to your sort of your thesis or your hypothesis on the crowds, it sort of depends on the player. We all know golf is a game of solitude. So 90% of your activity in this game is by yourself. And if you reach the level that we're talking about on tour, you have your caddy certainly inside the ropes, and then the competitors that you play with. Now you branch out into the dynamic of you're playing in a theatrical sense in front of crowds. And like you point out, Justin Thomas, since he was probably 7 years old in Kentucky, was playing in front of somebody. So these guys are show-offs by nature. They're used to hitting great shots under pressure in front of people and getting a reaction. So some of them have strangely, might surprise you, have really enjoyed not the fact that we've had to go through this year of incredible tragedy and difficulty, but that they show up at a golf course now and they kind of just get about their business. They're not signing a lot of autographs. There's not a lot of inconvenience with your daily routine. Some guys like that. They just like to show up, practice, play, and go home. But many others literally thrive off an audience, and they need that for motivation. Because you remember, John, and you've played tour golf and been a professional for many, many years, the repetition of having to get up emotionally day after day, week after week, year after year, you need some kind of stimulation, and crowds provide that. So Thomas to win in front of whatever the number was the final day, I'm sure it felt to him like 100,000 people. And there's an energy that's derived from that most of these top tier players really thrive on.
Yeah, and let's segue that to the Masters coming up in just a couple of weeks as we record this. I understand currently they're talking about 5,000 spectators or patrons, excuse me, and that'll be unique. But that's always been one where they talk about the roars of the lower part of the golf course and Amen Corner, and you can tell a birdie roar versus an eagle roar. So I know as you get prepared to do your work there with CBS, that'll be curious to see how the Masters how all that's reflected.
Yeah, it will. And to your point, when you visited the property, the way Augusta National presents itself, there's the high ground, which is up by the first tee, and then there's some estimates say an 11-story drop from the 10th tee to the 10th green, and then you go from 11 down to 11 green. That's another, let's say 75, 100-foot drop from the tee to the green. So the terrain there allows for noise to really reverberate in amazing ways. I don't know if it's 5,000, 8,000, whatever it is. It's not going to be an enormous number, and you can't really recreate it, but just enough. So, for instance, when we were there in November, John, and Dustin Johnson to shoot 20 under par at Augusta, and I know it was a softer venue and all that, but that golf course is not that easy. I think really, a lot of talk about the par fives at Augusta, which are gettable. There's trouble, of course, on 13 and 15 if you're short or long on 15. But for the most part, players of this caliber, if they have a good number in the fairway, they're going to put the ball on the green in two and make a lot of birdies and eagles that week. Par threes are very challenging, of course, but 3 of the 4, the 6th hole, the 12th hole, and the 16th hole, they're hitting mid to short irons. Okay, so the par fours at Augusta, the 10 collective par fours, I can't think of another golf course in the world that has a more stout grouping. So for Dustin to shoot 20 under, yet with no reaction to any of the birdies and eagles that he made, it had to be a very strange experience. And it doesn't allow you as a competitor to know how other guys are doing in real time. The groans for a ball in the water at 12, or conversely, the eagle roar at 15. I mean, like you say, instantly what has happened. You don't know who it is per se, but something dramatic is going on. So that at least will be in play this time around. And I have a good feeling, John, that the setup of the golf course is going to be such that nobody is going to get anywhere near 20 under par, and maybe even single digits if they keep the greens firm. Lee Westwood was just there last week and called it the most difficult setup he's ever seen at Augusta. Now that's several weeks in front of the tournament. If it doesn't rain, I think you're going to see firm, fast conditions and a much more difficult test than we saw back in November.
He's such an interesting story that you kind of have to look for him on the leaderboard over the years that, he's been in contention at so many majors. And at 47 years old, it's sort of like the Phil Mickelson discussion that, how many more chances does he have? But with these 2 monster runner-ups this year where, if it weren't for Bryson and Justin Thomas winning those events in dramatic fashion, that he could have had these 2 back-to-back wins with he and his secret weapon, Helen, at his side. So wouldn't that be a story at Augusta if he were to come through and bag his major there?
Well, it would be, and certainly wouldn't put it past him. He's a gamer. He's hung around for many, many years. As you say, had myriad chances to win majors. Just at Augusta, I can recall he was leading after 3 rounds the year Mickelson won in 2010. And Lee played a good, solid final round, but Phil was just better. So like you point out, sometimes, you can play a solid final round, but somebody just betters you. Now, you mentioned his fiance, and getting back to a point I made earlier, John, in that tournaments are repetition. Pro golf is about just the routine and sometimes the perseverance that's required to keep playing day after day, to show up every day on the first tee and have your game and be ready to score and to hang around. So 4 rounds of a tournament. Lee Westwood is playing 3.5 great rounds right now. He's got to figure out a way to play the back 9 on Sunday better. Now, when you have your significant other or a relative on the bag or a friend, that really works well Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But Sunday and crunch time, when you really need someone to validate what you're thinking, wind swirling, putt looks like it's right edge, but actually it breaks 2 cups, I'm thinking 6-iron, but a good caddy might talk you into a 7. And all it takes is 1 or 2 shots or errant swings or misreads on a green to lose a tournament. So I think Westwood, as well as he's playing, if he had a top tier caddy on his bag come down the stretch, maybe that makes a difference. But maybe in his mind, it matters more to be relaxed all the way up till Sunday afternoon and play better that way. So whatever formula he's using, it's working, but he just needs one little kick to get over the hump. I don't know that it'll happen at the Masters, but if it did, it'd be a remarkable achievement for sure.
Well, what a great point that is. And, like you say, that, one shot and, that one shot could lead to, the next 2 or 3 being proper, either for whatever reason. So, yeah, great point there. Let's talk about the match play this week. As you know, I like to look at pairings and match play. Boy, that's the ultimate in pairings. And let's talk about actually the first match of the day on Wednesday. It starts Wednesday this week. Rory McIlroy versus Ian Poulter. I find that one pretty intriguing.
Me too. That's a good one. And you'd honestly, although Poulter hasn't played a lot of top tier golf in recent memory, he's been in contention a couple times. You'd almost say he might be the better match play competitor than Rory, strangely enough. Rory is capable, of course, of amazing things, but he does make for a Hall of Fame player a lot of mistakes. And match play sometimes, and you've played a bunch of it yourself, it's not about necessarily making 7 or 8 birdies in a round. It's about making 15 pars and 2 birdies and minimal mistakes. So Poulter's not a guy that gives away a whole lot, and he fights you to the end. And of course, he's a great putter. And putting in match play can make up for a lot of mistakes. And he would definitely have an advantage over McIlroy, throughout his career, at least in that category. So yeah, match play, I find it strange, John, when you're over a putt and it's either, make or miss, whichever happens is the result of the hole, because you're so used to, putting. And if you miss, marking and then tapping it in and sort of the process of whether you're 2-putting, do I get aggressive and try to 1-putt here? It seems like in match play that some of the greatest competitors just say, try to hole everything. But that can get you out of your routine too. If you're just trying to chip a ball in from off the green or hole bunker shots, maybe you get too aggressive. So anyway, it's a fascinating format. And having 2 Europeans like that going out right off the bat will be an interesting one to watch.
And I think also Rory lately has been playing poorly for the most part. And he admitted that he got caught up in the Bryson battle of distance. And he actually admitted that, he went for the distance and it probably goofed him up for his rhythm and tempo and scoring and such. And it just kind of proves that, you got to play your own game and you got to kind of, this is a scoring game. As I like to used to tell my golf students, it's not a drag race. It's it's an efficiency contest when you play golf. And so it'll be curious to see if Rory can get back out of that. And how do you shut that down and put a new engine in the car and become more of a roadster than a dragster. So,
yeah. And from what we understand, he's been meeting with multiple instructors lately, even just to get some input or validation of what he's trying to do. So that's a tough one when you're with one instructor your whole life, and now you start looking for answers elsewhere. That may work out, but it always seems to take a little bit of time.
Well, I'll throw you an old Ben Hogan quote that I loved. He said, you cannot tinker your way out of a slump. You have to play through it. So I think he just needs to play more and try to, the old cliche, go back to his fundamentals of 10 years ago and just play through it. So next pairing, we'll go to the U.S. team. Patrick Reed and Bubba Watson. Pretty intriguing. 2 very fiery players. And that'll be a fun one to watch.
Yeah. I mean, Bubba is very strong in this format. And it probably goes a little bit against what I was saying a minute ago about mistake-free golf usually prevails. Bubba kind of makes the mistakes, but he covers it up with just extraordinary, ability to overpower holes or get his ball into a little nook and cranny of a fairway or a green based on the way he curves it. So he'd be an opponent, I would imagine, because he's so unorthodox, that would be tough to handle. Reed is a guy that he doesn't care who he's playing, John. He is literally gonna fight you tooth and nail. A little bit like Poulter, a younger Poulter, is that he doesn't wow you with any particular facet of his game, maybe his short game, which helps in match play, chipping and putting. But those guys are gonna stand on the first tee. I doubt there's gonna be a whole lot of conversation, and let the best man win. So they're both outstanding in this format. And if you told one or two of those guys in format, it won't work out that way. But if one of the other makes it to the very end of this event, it would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, and lastly, the aforementioned Lee Westwood against Sergio Garcia, two great European players, and boy, they're both, in their middle to later age of high level competitive golf, but playing very well lately. And Sergio certainly in the memory of Seve and where that was Mr. Match Play type golf. That'll be a fun one to watch as well.
Yeah, for sure. Getting back to the Masters, Westwood's hoping to have what Sergio got 4 years ago, which is his first major later in his career, and have it come at Augusta. So maybe in between the holes, Lee can ask Sergio for the secret sauce, how to get that done at Augusta. But one thing about Sergio, John, that Austin, Texas, where this event is being held, is his home. So he will know, if not the golf course very, very well, he should know it by now, but he'll know the conditions. Springtime in Texas, the winds can blow, minimally, or they can howl. So you never know what you're going to get, but he should have, a little bit of an advantage there. But you contrast that with, sometimes it's not easy to play at home, where you're going home every night and you've got, young children, and you're maybe going to bed late, getting up early, and just the repetition of driving to and from the course versus just going to a hotel and minding your own business. So again, these are all the dynamics that pros deal with. It's all good. They're good problems to have, and the fact that we're playing golf and week in, week out on schedule is a big thing. Across the board in sports, we're seeing the NCAA tournament this week, which is fantastic. And free agency in the NFL, spring training in baseball feels a lot different than it did a year ago at this time, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. Last topic for Tom Spencer. And Tom, Cal Berkeley, right here in our backyard, has had an unbelievable run. Not a super powerhouse college program, but yet they're a former NCAA champion. And I don't want to, put them in the second tier, but they're not that often that top three, although they've been ranked very, very high. I'm probably getting myself into trouble trying to explain this with the coaches, but they've had some amazing success lately. Colin Morikawa winning, Max Homa, Brandon Hagee with a great runner-up at the Honda this week, James Hahn with a good recovery from a medical extension, and Ben On, former U.S. amateur champion, becoming a very consistent performer. So great kudos to them. And I know that that's got to help their recruiting down the line. And a lot of them even carry, a Cal Bear yardage book holder and some kind of identity for Cal. And it's certainly been noted by you and other broadcasting organizations.
Right. I mean, it's impossible to ignore. And anytime I get a chance to provide some information on Bay Area golf, I'm doing my best. And of course, Stanford last year, kind of unsung, came back and wins the NCAAs. Great achievement there. And to your point about recruiting at Cal, I mean, imagine if you're a prospective young player and maybe Colin Morikawa gets on a Zoom call with you and gives you a 5-minute pep talk about coming to Cal and playing for this wonderful program. You even had Michael Kim, who's a recent graduate, won a tournament a few years ago. So the run that they have had over the last really 15 years has been phenomenal. And these guys are prepared when they get on the tour. I don't know that I've seen a player more prepared for tournament golf on the PGA Tour in the last decade plus than Colin Morikawa. He simply checks every single category to be ready to perform. And then you let your God-given talent take you where it does. But he has he's left no stone left unturned, and he's got a great demeanor. And look what he did at Harding Park. I mean, that was just a great achievement under extreme pressure and down the stretch with a lot of guys, some of whom we've mentioned already in this Zoom call, so the premier players in the game, and he housed them all. So it's been a wonderful, because as you and I both know, I mean, the Bay Area is not it's a great place to play college golf. You've got a climate that gives you a variation of weather. You've got wonderful courses, public and private, around the community, and great tradition. So it's all set up for guys to come out of there and give it a shot on the PGA Tour if they can make it.
Yeah, and I know this has been mentioned often, but Colin's got a great caddy in JJ Jakovac, who played high school golf and was a teammate with Johnny Miller's kids at Napa. Played very good golf at Chico State. Played a lot of the junior golf in Northern California. And he's been on tour for a number of years with a number of victories under his belt. And I think that was a great move of Colin to get an experienced caddy. So he's doing well, and I'm sure his wife is just as soon stay home with their baby and not be carrying the bag. So great move there. So good stuff. Tom, great to catch up with you, and really great insights today. And we'll maybe try to do one more of these before the Masters, and then certainly we'll do a post Masters synopsis. So great stuff there, and appreciate your time as usual.
Okay, John, nice to be with you. Always enjoy it. Thanks so much.
All right, there we are, Tom Spencer, and good catching up on some of the pro golf happening. So if you missed this one, you can go to YouTube and look up John Abendroth interviews and a lot of the fun past ones that we've done. Thank you very much.